Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on Summer Solutions, setting your business up for a successful tax season. We will wait just another couple of minutes before we really get started to make sure that everyone has a chance to join us today. All right, thank you all so much for joining us today. My name is Christina, and we at TaxBandits are excited to help you stay informed and IRS compliant. If you have any questions during the presentation, please add them to the chat. If you cannot see the webinar in full screen, please try clicking the square in the upper right corner of the webinar to enlarge the view. As a reminder, TaxBandits is an IRS authorized e-file provider. While we love to talk about taxes and we have years and years of experience, we are not tax advisors. If you need assistance preparing returns or any other specific questions, please consult a certified tax preparer or the IRS. We will now take a quick look at using the GoToWebinar toolbar.
Hello. Thanks for joining today's webinar. You can enlarge your screen for the optimal viewing experience using these buttons. You can also click the arrow here to view the hidden menu. The section at the very bottom will twirl out a menu that allows you to ask questions for the host to answer. Thanks for joining us, and we hope you enjoy this webinar.
Today we'll be discussing what business owners and tax preparers can do in the summer months to set your business up for a successful tax season. This includes not forgetting about your off-season IRS requirements, using this time to collect and manage vendor information, locking in your year-end filing solution. We'll also cover what to consider when choosing a solution, and we'll even have a brief Q&A at the end, so be sure to stick around. So let's start by discussing off-season filing requirements. Form 941 is an IRS payroll form that is a filing requirement for the majority of employers. If you pay wages to employees and withhold Social Security, Medicare, and income taxes from their paychecks, you're likely required to file. As Form 941 is a quarterly form, it has 4 separate deadlines each year. The deadline to file Form 941 for the second quarter of 2023 is July 31st. Let's look at 2023 updates that affect Form 941. Now, great news, there aren't actually updates for the second quarter of 2023, but there are a few 2023 updates. So in case you have not heard, the Social Security wage-based limit is $160,200. Next up, employers that complete Form 8974 can claim up to $500,000 due to the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022. And finally, while the employee retention credit cannot be claimed on the current quarter 941, eligible employers have the ability to claim it for past quarters. A common question related to the Form 941 now is, what is the ERC? The acronym ERC stands for Employee Retention Credit. This is a refundable tax credit available for some businesses that were affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. This credit was introduced by the CARES Act in 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic to help businesses that were negatively impacted. For example, this tax credit is for businesses that paid employees while they were shut down due to the COVID pandemic. businesses that qualified as a recovery startup business for the third or fourth quarters of 2021, or businesses that had significant decreases in gross receipts between March 13th, 2020 and December 31st, 2021. There is a lot of information out there on who is eligible for the ERC, so we've compiled a free PDF of useful information and resources on the ERC, as well as the other topics that we'll discuss today, and we will be sharing that with all of you after the webinar via email. So, how can a business claim the Employee Retention Credit? To receive the Employee Retention Credit, eligible taxpayers can claim the ERC on an original or amended employment tax return. These eligible employers can claim the ERC on qualified wages paid between March 13th, 2020 and December 31st, 2021. And we'll also include that information about the process to claim the credit on the PDF for you. With all of the information out there about the Employee Retention Credit, you've probably heard about Form 7200, so we'll touch on that here for a moment as well. Form 7200 was the advance payment of employer credits due to COVID-19. Since this was a form to apply for an advance payment, the IRS has discontinued this form. Form 7200 cannot be filed after January 31st, 2022. But that does not mean that the ERC can't be applied for. As we mentioned earlier, eligible taxpayers can claim the ERC on an original or amended employment tax return, such as a 941 or 941X. Employers are still able to claim the ERC on applicable employee wages between March 12, 2020 and January 1st, 2021. However, this will not be the case forever. This means that businesses that are eligible for the Employee Retention Credit would need to apply sooner rather than later. For the 2020 tax year, the deadline for the ERC is April 15th, 2024. This deadline applies to all 941 filings in the second, third, and fourth quarters of 2020. And for the 2021 tax year, the deadline is April 15th, 2025. This deadline applies to all four quarters because the ERC was available for all four quarters of 2021. While many businesses may benefit from the Employee Retention Credit, there are concerns related to this credit that taxpayers need to be aware of. The IRS has been issuing multiple warnings concerning third parties that are advertising about claiming the Employee Retention Credit since November 2022. Many third parties are urging businesses and individuals to file for an Employee Retention Credit even though they are not eligible. Some third parties are providing misinformation to businesses about their eligibility for the ERC and even the computation of the credit. Many of these third parties are also charging large fees for their service upfront for a service that's not being completed correctly or that's being completed for ineligible businesses. This is especially concerning considering that the IRS specifically states that taxpayers are always responsible for the information reported on their tax returns, meaning filing an employment tax return claiming the credit incorrectly could cause the taxpayer to have to repay the credit and owe penalties plus interest. Tax preparers can be an amazing resource and relief for their clients. Many offer a valuable and accurate service that keeps business owners from stressing over tax forms and lets them focus on running their business. However, there are tax preparers that take advantage of their access to sensitive data like EINs. Utilizing this information that's available to them, some preparers commit fraud, identity theft, and other scams. Needless to say, this can result in a mess for the business owner. To avoid this, the IRS provides resources to help you select a tax preparer that is right for you. We've also included these IRS resources on the PDF that you'll receive after the webinar. And while being selective in choosing a tax preparer is a good practice, it's also vitally important that businesses are cautious about when, where, and how they share their data. Not only are third parties incorrectly filing the ERC for their customers, there are also individuals gaining access to business data and filing forms applying for the ERC without the business owner's knowledge. And again, these scams can cause major headaches for the business owner when they eventually discover what's happened. When you do file Form 941, whether it's a prior quarter Form 941 or to meet your current quarter off-season deadline, e-filing Form 941 is as simple as creating your free account, selecting the year and quarter that you need to file for, entering the required information, reviewing your form details, and transmitting your form. Now that we've discussed off-season filing deadlines, let's talk about what you can do in the off-season to prepare for tax time. One important step to prepare is to collect your vendor information throughout the year. When tax season arrives, you're likely required to file a 1099 NEC or 1099 miscellaneous for the independent contractors and vendors that you made payment to throughout the year. To file accurate forms, you will need to collect and manage your vendor's tax information, most importantly, their name and TIN, or taxpayer identification number. Form W-9 is an IRS tax form that allows you to collect this information from the individual or business. This form also allows you to collect their signature, certifying that the information they've provided on the form is correct. For many years, the only option was to give your vendors a paper copy of the Form W-9, either by faxing them, meeting them in person, or mailing them a copy that they are then expected to complete and mail back to you, hopefully correctly. And all of these options were slow and time-consuming. TaxBandits offers a simple solution for collecting Form W-9 electronically and capturing your vendor's e-signature. With TaxBandits W-9 Manager, you can request Form W-9 from your vendors and store their information securely. This process allows you to easily access it, update it, and use it to generate 1099s at the end of the year. TaxBandits performs TIN matching to ensure that the TIN your vendors and contractors provide matches what's on record with the IRS. To collect electronic W-9s from vendors, you can send requests one at a time as needed or multiple requests all at once in bulk. Each vendor receives a personalized email notifying them that your business is requesting that they complete Form W-9 and explaining why it's needed. The vendor is then directed to our secure portal, and the W-9 that the vendor completes in the TaxBandits portal looks exactly like a hard copy of Form W-9, allowing the vendor to complete the form quickly and easily. After completing their form, the vendor certifies that the information they've provided is accurate by electronically signing. Once Form W-9 is complete, the vendor receives a confirmation message assuring them that the form has been submitted, and they can even download a copy for their records. From within your TaxBandits account, you will have access to track the entire W-9 process, helping you ensure you've received all of your vendors' W-9s in a timely manner. Once the vendor completes their W-9, you'll receive a notification email from TaxBandits. You'll also have the option to review the completed W-9 in your TaxBandits account, where you can either accept or reject the form depending on whether or not the information appears to be correct. The vendor details are stored in your TaxBandits account, giving you easy access to them when it's time to complete, file, and distribute Form 1099. The next step in setting your business up for success is selecting and locking in your solution for year-end e-filing. This includes your business's or your client's 1099, W-2, ACA, and 94X forms. This is especially important as the IRS is consistently moving toward e-filing. Just this year, they issued final regulations to reduce the threshold for the number of forms that must be e-filed. In the past, businesses filing less than 250 of any information return, such as Form 1099, have not been required to e-file. This threshold is being reduced to 10 forms. And it's also worth noting that the 10-form threshold includes any type of information return. For example, if you needed to file 10 W-2 forms and 10 1099 forms, that would be 20 forms, meaning e-filing would be required. For many businesses, this will change e-filing from an option to a requirement. This will affect even the smallest businesses. But you can get ahead of this by estimating how many forms you'll need to file, choosing an e-file provider that's right for you, and spending some time getting familiar with their system. When choosing an IRS e-file solution for the upcoming tax season, there is a lot to consider. Focus on asking yourself the following questions. Will this provider make it simple for you to e-file the volume of forms that you need to file? Do they support all of the IRS forms that you or your clients need? Is there an option for distributing recipient copies? And even if there is, do you have a choice of distributing postal mailed or electronic copies of the forms? If you're working with your team to file, does the application allow you to delegate and create a workflow that's effective? If you're a high volume filer, is there an API option available? Is there an option to file corrections if needed? Do they have features that improve accuracy? Does the provider have any data integration options? And what kind of support is available? With all of these things to consider, it's crucial to start searching for a provider now to make sure you have time to find the best solution for your business. E-filing with TaxBandits is as easy as creating your TaxBandits account, importing your form details, purchasing credits to get the best price per form, reviewing your forms and selecting how you want to distribute them, and selecting to transmit. TaxBandits then files the forms with the IRS, the state if needed, and we can even distribute the recipient copies. With TaxBandits, there's no minimum or maximum to the number of forms that you can e-file. We support a variety of import options, including API. Our staff management features and error checks allow you and your team to work together efficiently and file forms accurately. And with TaxBandits, you can file a few forms at a time or thousands of forms at a time, making it the perfect e-file solution for every business. Now, we are going to go ahead and get ready for our Q&A. Feel free to start putting your questions in that questions box that we looked at the beginning of our webinar. While we're getting ready and giving everyone a moment to get questions in, I just wanted to give you some more information on the other products that we offer. Tax 990 is another IRS authorized e-file solution. Tax 990 specializes in assisting nonprofits and tax-exempt organizations with e-filing their 990 series forms. Express Extension is another of our e-file solutions. Express Extension, as you can see, specializes in e-filing extension forms for tax-exempt businesses, information returns, and personal forms. And finally, ACA-Wise is a full-service solution for e-filing ACA forms with the IRS. And if you would like more information or have questions on any of those, please feel free to put those in the chat box as well. Or if you need additional information or would like to have a conversation about them, we'll also have our contact information at the end of the webinar, so feel free to reach out. But we'll go ahead and jump into our Q&A, and it looks like we do have some great questions here. Let me see. So the first one that we'll go with is, does TaxBandits print and mail the recipient copies, or is there an online option? And the answer is we actually offer both. TaxBandits has a SOC 2 certified postal mail option for the recipient copies, where we print and mail those to the recipients for you. We also have USPS address validation to make sure that the recipients' addresses are accurate and the forms are going to the right person, the right place. We also have an an online access option for the recipients. Basically, how that works is you'll add their email address when you file and you choose online access. TaxBandits will send the recipient an email with a secure link directing them to our portal. Upon reaching the portal, the recipient will enter their email address and their TIN, and they will need to consent to an electronic disclosure before accessing their document. As you all know, you can't just email the recipients a copy of their form and say it's done. The IRS does require that if you're only giving copies electronically, that you receive that consent from the recipient. So TaxBandits has that consent feature built right in, and when they consent to that disclosure, that's tracked in your TaxBandits account. The recipient will then, of course, have access to their document. They can access it anywhere at any time. And if you file multiple forms for them, or as you file year after year, they'll have access to all those copies in one place. All right, let's see. Our next question, this is a really common one, especially these days. How do I find out the status of my ERC after I file for it? TaxBandits, again, we are an IRS authorized e-file provider, and we're happy to help with questions about our system. We love to talk about taxes and help you all, but we cannot advise on or provide an update on the ERC, or refunds from the IRS. Those are strictly IRS things. So for information on an employee retention credit or refund, we do ask that you contact the IRS at 1-800-829-4933. Let me see, I'm just looking through our questions here. The next one is TaxBandits cloud-based or desktop? And TaxBandits is a cloud-based solution. It allows you to easily and securely access your account from any computer. Okay, we have another question that is TaxBandits integrated with any companies? The answer is yes. TaxBandits is integrated with several. We have an integration with QuickBooks Online, with Xero, Zoho Books, and we are actually integrated with Sage Intacct as well. Let me see. All right, I think that's going to be all that we have time for on questions today. If you submitted a question and we did not get to it, we still appreciate you taking the time to ask. And a member of our TaxBandits team will email you with an update about that question after the webinar. We hope that you've enjoyed today's webinar. Make sure to check out our blog and our YouTube channel if you haven't already. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay up to date on our latest tutorials. As mentioned, we will also be emailing you a PDF with information on these topics that we've covered today. And I want to remind everyone to make sure that the email address that you've used when registering for the webinar is spelled correctly and is a valid email address that you actually have access to, because not only will we be sending the PDF, but we'll also be sending educational information and tax updates throughout the year. So that's definitely something that you won't want to miss. But thank you all so much for joining us today. As I mentioned, if you have questions about TaxBandits, anything that we've talked about, or other products, please feel free to contact us. We are available Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5:30 Eastern, year-round. You can reach us by phone at 704-684-4751, by email at support@taxbandits.com, or by online chat at taxbandits.com. And if you do not already have a TaxBandits account, go ahead, head over to taxbandits.com and create one now.